Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
Johnny Sue still spinning on those ones and twos. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming back. And thank you for those who watched our last show with Brandon Lamar, the activist. We had a great conversation. We're going to continue to have more conversations like that, but we're never going to deprive people of the main show, fam, and that's us on the couch. Me, saying it's always appreciated on
and
the
me
couch.
being annoyed at you constantly,
Of course, yes. We have a new format, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter via Periscope. We are live on ROKFIN. Now, we're going to pull the stream down off of YouTube after. We're going to clip it up, and we're going to give you shareable clips back on YouTube. Yep. But if you want to see its live stream in its entirety, you got to go over to ROKFIN or become, guess what, fam?
What, fam?
A Patreon. And then you can watch it over there as well.
Okay.
All right. So let's get started. Let's get the ball rolling, fam. We had, I can see stuff's going to happen right here. We were just starting to get started with this beforehand, fam. What happened last night? Let's talk about your girl.
Okay, so just an update. First of all, let's start with Georgia. Georgia had disastrous elections. Poll machines not working, long lines, the same bullshit that we heard throughout this primary season and all the way, of course, back in 2016. So we let's just take a look at some of the issues that were happening in Georgia. Yeah.
This is primary day in Georgia. Lines in Atlanta stretching for blocks. Some standing in the rain, forced to wait hours to cast a ballot.
You've been here about 3 hours. I'm not leaving. You're not leaving? So I'm done. Why are you so intent upon staying here? It's important. It's important for me. It's important for my son.
So we're going on that 4-hour mark.
Georgia unveiling new voting machines statewide right in the midst of a pandemic.
Several of the machines were broken. It seemed like maybe half of the machines were down.
It was a disappointment. This is something that should have been checked yesterday.
The biggest problems in metro Atlanta, specifically areas with higher black populations. The city's mayor asking, is this happening across the county or just on the south end, pointing to a predominantly black area. LeBron James tweeting, they say go out and vote. What about asking if how we vote is also structurally racist? Georgia's Secretary of State, who oversees the election, is blaming local officials, saying poll workers were not properly trained.
The employees didn't understand the system. So what were they doing for all these months? All of a sudden they wake up and they say, let's have an election on Tuesday?
One county official firing back at the Secretary of State, saying if there was a failure of leadership, it starts where the buck should stop, at the top.
Now Georgia's Secretary of State has launched an investigation ahead of November's election.
Taking over Boulevard.
Okay, so as you guys heard, the same old issues that have plagued us for the longest time.
This.
I mean, it's just the same bullshit. And then we just have another Twitter clip that shows a little bit more of that.
Guys, I'm terrified. I ran for office. I worked for President Obama in the White House. This is wrong. This is America. Please, God, help us. I mean it. This is a crisis in our world to make us not exercise our right to vote.
And let me ask you something. Did anybody call the news or anything?
I tweeted all the major networks. So everybody tweet the networks. Everybody, please. The radio stations, everybody. Tweet everybody, please everybody. We cannot tolerate this. I love you. I love you. I love civil disobedience. Let's work together. I love you. I'm just sick. I have to go home to take medicine. But I love you.
Thank you.
Keep the eyes. I'm terrified.
Right. So people are obviously outraged because this keeps happening, right? And I think the Democratic Party thinks that people aren't paying attention because it's COVID, because it's protests. But now people are paying attention because they're protesting, and a lot of people are starting to talk about, well, you know, a lot of young people, especially, our vote doesn't count. People, I mean, we wait in hours. People were waiting for hours, and the Democrats come back with a retort. Oh, okay, well, I hope we can fix it by November.
Yeah.
Because that's all they care about. Because they don't care about this primary. Why? Because they've already selected Joe Biden as the candidate. They've already decided they decided that a long time ago, that it wasn't going to be Bernie Sanders. You're dismissing everybody's right to vote right now. Even if Joe Biden has clinched the nomination, people have the right to vote for whoever they want. And the fact is, a lot of people don't like Joe Biden, and they want to make sure people hear that.
Okay, and also this spin to just make it like it's about race only. It's a political divide too as well, because yes, and I think the Democrats are trying to spin this as look what they're doing in Georgia. They're suppressing the black vote, whatnot. Yeah, but we saw in LA they suppressed the Latino vote and the young hipster vote. They made those lines long, knowing that all these young kids were going to go out with this populist message of progressivism and going to go vote. So they want to suppress the vote, all across the board.
Yeah.
The black vote in Georgia is primarily Democratic. You know what I'm saying? It's more progressive. But it's also political, we see as well. You know what I'm saying? So it's the Democrats are going to try to twist this and say, look what the Republicans are doing to you. Vote for us. We're going to fix it. And they're never going to fix it.
No.
So they're the wolves in sheep clothing
Here's
themselves.
where that argument dies, though. This is the primary. So obviously the fight isn't Democrat versus Republican. This is a primary. This is people like voting for the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate. So there's your argument there. Your argument dies because the primaries are about choosing the right candidate to run in the general. So they can't even use that argument because that's not where the battle is. That's in the general November. And so they always, even here, they're like, well, I hope we can fix it by November. No. Bullshit. Like, you were supposed to have it fixed a long fucking time ago. And I want people to be more like this lady, to be outraged, to be pissed off, because at the very least that'll draw attention to what's happening, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, hey, why is this happening right now during a primary? Like, is it going to be magically fixed in time to vote against Donald Trump? Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. So
that was fire what she did.
Yeah.
I mean,
we need to see more
it looks like she went to outside the line with her car and she just started publicly speaking. This is what we need to do more of.
Yep.
More and more people need to go out and have public town halls.
Yeah. She did say she worked for Obama. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what she.
Yeah,
was,
but
what
I think she
was
meant
meaning by
like
that.
I worked for Obama. I campaigned for Obama. Blah blah blah. I think she was just saying like I've been here before. This is not normal.
Okay.
I don't think she was saying like praise Obama. Just because she mentioned Obama's name doesn't mean she's praising him.
Gotcha.
So Paula Jean won in West Virginia. She's a progressive. She supports Medicare for All, Green New Deal. She was also in the AOC documentary
with Amy Vilela.
And she's kind of got some controversial issues that she had a channel where she was talking about pedogate. And that's very real, by the way, for people who want to mock that. That's really real. There's a lot more to that. But she's very heavily focused on the issues when it comes to Medicare for All and things like that. Now, West Virginia, we all know that for me, it's it's definitely one of the most poorest states factually. But for me, it shows just a lot of people that have been forgotten. The coal miners, the factory workers. You go through West Virginia and it's just like solemn. We've seen many movies be made out of the fact that they get diseases from their water. The politicians don't give a crap about them. They are honestly like, it's like a third world country in West Virginia. It's really, really bad. And nobody gives a damn because it's a bunch of, they reference them. It was just a bunch of, quote, hillbillies there. And it's been completely unfair. And the more I've seen about West Virginia, the more I've been angry as to how they've been treated and dismissed. Similarly to Flint, Michigan and other cities like that in America that shouldn't exist. Now, Paula Jean won and beat out Richard Ojeda, who was the other Democrat. And she's running against a Republican female a Republican woman in the general. She has a really good chance to win here. It's ironic to me that in times of crisis, West Virginia might be the one to actually have a progressive. I mean, it's just ironic to me. But you have your opinion on Richard Ojeda. You feel like he's better on foreign policy. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, this is kind of like that whole, divide that I see, fam, that I still think we need to work on. When I saw Paula Jean on, what's his name, the Humanist Report, Michael Figueredo show, that's kind of had that same kind of language of like, okay, these are the things that are uber important to you. Richard Ojeda has been a little flip-floppy when it comes to his rhetoric or, his discussions about Medicare for All, where Paula Jean is going to fight no matter for what for Medicare for All because it's the most important issues. And, Green New Deal, Richard Ojeda has kind of reached an arm out to some of the people who are the coal miners. He doesn't know necessarily if they're going to transition into clean jobs yet. So he still, maybe has this kind of rhetoric where he would continue to have coal miners with their jobs. So therefore he's ostracized from that kind of community. The fact that he's talked to Joe Manchin when it comes to like, civil liberties issues and trying to push him to get away from the Patriot Act. And I say this right now, when it comes to foreign policy, Richard Ojeda is far superior than Paula Jean Swearengin. Now, what I'm trying to say, fam, is that it's not wrong to pick Paula Jean over, it's not necessarily, you could pick Paula Jean over Richard Ojeda, but I see the same type of language going on when people go, well, why are you supporting for Tulsi Gabbard over Bernie Sanders? Bernie was here first, and we should be supporting him. It's like, but you're misunderstanding the issues that these group of people have that you're not allowing to come in sometimes, where I think we need to be building bridges rather than just ostracizing the person and saying whose turn it is. And that is that foreign policy aspect, that civil liberties aspect, whatnot, that it's just the issues that why those people, I think, stood behind Tulsi Gabbard as opposed to Bernie Sanders. And understanding those issues, because I've been at a Bernie group where I've been ostracized for supporting Tulsi Gabbard because they've looked at some of the things that Tulsi Gabbard's done. And I'm saying, you're not listening to me. It's my issues that you're not bringing to the table, that you're not accepting.
But do you really think people are supporting Richard Ojeda for foreign policy? Because I don't buy that. I think Richard Ojeda comes off as a more centrist type of Democrat. And
we say more centrist, but we're not. He's far superior on foreign policy than Paula Jean Swearengin, by far. He understands imperialism. He understands regime change war. So when we say he's more of a centrist, just because he has that, I mean, I wouldn't consider Tulsi Gabbard to be more of a centrist, but yet she was considered to be more close to the Republicans.
I would consider her not to be as far left, though, as, say, Bernie Sanders on some issues. On foreign policy, though, she was stronger
and civil
in some
liberties.
ways. Yeah, she was more entirely vocal, absolutely, 100%. But here's the thing. When I'm looking at West Virginia, I'm looking at a state that is so poor that I just don't buy that people there are looking at foreign policy as their main concern. People there don't even, Pasa, it is literally a fourth world country in West Virginia. It is absolutely abysmal. They don't have anything. Nobody gives a damn about their lives. And they've been treated as such. So if I'm a West Virginian, I'm not really going to care about foreign policy because I can't even put food on the table.
There's a lot of
feed
bases there. There's a lot of but there's a lot of bases. There's a lot of servicemen there in West Virginia too, as well. Richard Ojeda being one of them. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people, whether we believe it or not. Now I understand it's not as important as some of the other issues. And all I'm saying is what I would have liked to see from Paula Jean Swearengin, no matter what. And I understand there's bad blood between her and Ojeda because why he ran and whatnot. But I think there should be a recognition from people like Paula Jean Swearengin, or for people who are more of that Bernie Sanders, Medicare for all, gung-ho, beret people, to say, okay, what are the issues that are important to you? What do we have to bring into the table to bring us together? Because just because we have this small, different, nuanced, mentality about our civil liberties and foreign policy and those things, those need to be brought to the table. Because once again, I think without those issues in place, we can't get to a Green New Deal. We can't get to Medicare for all. And I don't see that sometimes. I still see a lot of Bernie people who are still like anti-Tulsi, to the anti-Tulsi people would saying, okay, well, why do these people feel this certain way? It was the issues. It wasn't Tulsi.
But you can get those things like Medicare for all and Green New Deal without paying attention to foreign policy. We saw it with FDR. The problem is we don't
without civil liberties in check.
We don't want to make the same mistake again.
Without our civil liberties in check, you think we can get there?
We have before.
We haven't with Medicare for all.
Well,
we've never
not
with Medicare for all. You know why? Because we have a large population of people in the United States who feel that, a government takeover of Medicare will be evil. And why? Because they've been able to control the narrative. They've been able to control the conversation. They've been able to suppress those voices. For me, information is the most important, valuable commodity out there right now. And he who controls it controls the people. So therefore, I don't believe it ever can get done unless we get those civil liberties straight, unless we have true freedom of speech. And we didn't have that issue back then with FDR. Now we have a different beast. We have a different game. And if we don't get that straight, you know what I'm saying?
Sure. I agree. I'm just saying it's not as present in the mind of people in West Virginia who are living in dire poverty that is hard to imagine exists in the United States. So, I mean, I think if you're going to talk about foreign policy, you have to make it relatable to those people there in that way. And Richard Ojeda has been too comfortable with the establishment. And West Virginia, for instance, in 2016, went for Bernie during the primary, and the general went straight Republican. And you have to think as to why. Because the Republicans weren't the ones that destroyed that state. They weren't the ones that didn't care about the factories being shut down. That left them in poverty. They have a huge opioid crisis, a huge drug problem. Like the Democrats were supposed to go after them, and they never did. So I think Paula Jean is actually grabbing from a lot of Republicans. I just think that the forefront of her is more domestic policy than foreign policy. And for a state like Virginia, I honestly see it very difficult to really make foreign policy to campaign on that.
It's not you, but also the decriminalization of drugs. Richard Ojeda's been big on that too as well. He's got that libertarian mindset of sorts. And here's the thing. I think neither one of them are tight and too pushy or close to the establishment whatsoever. That's where I see the opportunity for them to come together, because I don't see any of them. Now, I do see Richard trying to get chummy with Manchin, excuse me.
Yeah.
Is a little bit too much blue no matter who.
Yeah.
Because he believes that the Republicans are awful, and he believes that, they're just straight neocons, and he hates Donald Trump. But I thought there may be an opportunity for these people to kind of join forces.
But that's why, though.
Yeah.
If he's so focused on hating Donald Trump, that's going to off-put a lot of Republicans that are like, well, yeah, Trump, but look what the Democrats have done. So I think that's why she won.
So Jameson Doan is putting me in my place. He says Pasta is 100% wrong. Ojeda in foreign policy. He voted for Manchin. He doesn't mean what he says. Paula is 100% anti-imperialism and doesn't flip-flop on everything like Ojeda. You can't trust him. So Jameson is obviously for Paula Jean Swearengin.
What specifically foreign policy-wise?
Just his rhetoric about how we get involved with wars and what we do to our veterans as they come home. And once again, this is a long time ago, and there's a lot of people who are saying that he has flip-flopped on a lot of things. Remember Ojeda? I paid attention to Ojeda a lot when he jumped into the presidential race and stuff like that. And he was always looking at the oligarchs and saying we should eat the rich, and that they were going out to fight their wars, and these wars are not.
But what is he doing legislatively? That
he wasn't in office to, he was in the state Senate for a long time ago, whatnot, and so a lot of people like Paula Jean on this, and like I said, I'm willing to look more and see more, but I would like to see a bridge of those people come over and stand behind Paula Jean for her to win and sew this up. And I see a lot of the cancel culture sometimes. And I've seen that with Paula Jean sometimes, but in the past, like she really went after Ojeda because Ojeda said he believed in due process when it came to Kavanaugh. And I thought Paula Jean was very hard on Ojeda for that subject, whatnot. Not to say that Ojeda should have had a better position, but, it wasn't like he was pushing forth Kavanaugh.
Well, yeah,
he was just saying, I believe in due process.
Yeah, but that's also a reflective response of people who don't want to, who didn't buy her story. So that's also coming from a place of, that's a reactionary response that a lot of people on the right were saying, using. So for it was probably,
Well, as we see, their goose is cooked of their attitudes towards Biden right now. So, I mean, a lot of people called it for what it was politics. And it was.
I mean, I think it's still, a lot of people may have their differences with politics, but I think it's still a victory in the sense of if somebody like her gets in there, she is one of those people like Bernie that is bringing, I think, in some of the Republicans that have suffered under the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is largely hated in West Virginia for a reason, but the progressives are able to make a door there. They're able to go in there. So I think we're going to be it's going to be an interesting race. I think she can win it if she gets the support rallied behind her. We'll have to wait to see how that happens.
Yeah. And somebody said the Cheng promotion of Ojeda is all that you need to know.
Yeah.
Tony watches closely and stuff. And let me tell you something. I'm pretty sure that we've been involved in California politics before. We understand the whole ins and outs. There's a lot of shit going on. It's like a weekly TV show of drama, and this person said this and that. So I'm sure there's a lot more to it. I didn't put under a microscope the race between Swearengin and Ojeda, so I'm sure there's a lot of things I can get educated on. However, I'm just kind of, talking about my position right now, like I talked about, because we had some arguments the other day with some activists out here, and they still don't understand imperialism. They don't understand, our foreign policy. I think Johnny was even almost compelled to want to say something on a megaphone about foreign policy and how important it is. And their civil liberties. They have no idea how damaging the Patriot Act is and what it is. They don't even understand what Snowden did. And that is dangerous because we have to understand that as well. It is a nuanced situation. But I'm just feeling that door is still not opened up.
Well, it has to come from a place of understanding where they're coming from too. I always go back to that, because if you're just going to go and educate people on something like more than they do, it's not going to be receptive. I just feel like we're big picture thinkers. You are especially. We think on an international level and a national level. We just interviewed a guy that's more of a community organizer, thinking on the micro level. So there is that. Just because people don't think on that macro level doesn't mean that you can't talk to them about it or get them to make those connections. Human nature is to look immediately at what your first needs are: hunger, shelter. It's like, but that's why it's so hard to get people to pay attention to Assange, to get people to pay attention to regime change wars, because they're like, wait a minute, that's all over here. I'm over here. I need to pay my rent. I need to get this. So there has to be a way to bridge that, and you want to bridge the libertarians with that, but the libertarians then have to care about, like, they can't dismiss it as they're communist. Oh, they're socialist.
No, I hear you. And we have to move those particular type of modern day libertarians even further when it comes to that. I like to tell them how money's make pretend. But, like the Green New Deal. We talk about a Green New Deal. Well, one of the dirtiest ways that we pollute this planet and its ozone layer is through war, is missiles blowing up, whatnot. So that's why I thought eventually we would get to there and say, hey, man, you care about a Green New Deal? Let's stop dropping bombs. Let's stop dropping bombs and stuff like that, because that's what's really killing the ozone layer. And let's talk about how these bombs get there. Let's talk about the ways they do get here. So I hear you, fam. And once again, like, when it comes to Paula Jean Swearengin and Richard Ojeda, I'm sure there's a lot more nuanced situations that happen. It's just that I still feel the fact that a lot of people don't understand why I supported Tulsi Gabbard over Bernie Sanders and stuff. It wasn't the person, it was the issues, and to find the way how we get there. And I'm still searching for that way, how we get in there, because like you said, people are going to be concerned about rent and food and stuff. So they can't see past that, because that's survival mode. And most of the people on this planet right now are in survival mode.
Right.
So.
Especially in this country, too. And meanwhile, House Democrats like Nancy Pelosi are actually performing. They should get an Oscar for their performance in theatrics. I know most of you have already seen this, but I just have to point it out. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is disgusting. It is so tokenizing and so demeaning of a culture to just think that by putting on a scarf, you're going to make, you're somehow woke. You're somehow like engaging in this culture of like, I'm going to kneel for 8 minutes straight in silence, look like a dumbass. And that makes me progressive, and then turn around and say you're not willing to defund the police, which is exactly what they did. So we're just going to do this because we hope that gets you to vote for us against the horrible fascist Republicans. But then we're going to turn around and not even listen to you, not even do the minimal. Defunding the police right now is the minimal thing that these can do. It basically means restarting the whole police system, and that's where a lot of these issues stem from. So that's at minimum what the Democrats should be doing if they want your vote, right? That's the minimum, and they're not doing that.
And the one guy standing, Jerry Nadler, who wrote the Patriot Act, who said that the Russians' attack was somewhere equivalent to Pearl Harbor. And then you got Mr. Sherman all the way on the end of the right over there, another one who Raji Rabi ran against, and let's talk about that dude one day. He's freaking imperialist, and it's so disgusting that they do this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, here's a guy who just, what's that? Sherman was down there. Sherman? Yeah, Brad Sherman. I mean, it's just all the freaking guys who just strip away your civil liberties. Nadler standing up. I mean, and it's so awful. What do they do for you? They give you this. That's why I was hoping our last guest was like, I'm not going to vote for this. Yeah. I'm going to vote. No way I'm not going to vote for this. So,
yeah, anyways. They did this. I mean, like Jimmy said, they did that in lieu of doing anything else. Like, okay, that's going to make up for the police brutality, for the deaths, for the economic inequality, for all of these things that have just gotten worse by this pandemic and economic recession. This is the Democrats in a nutshell. This is the neoliberal party in a nutshell. This is what they do. They give you symbolic platitude bullshit. Yeah. So you shut the hell up and vote for them. And they think that should be enough. And
so gonna help Nancy Pelosi up.
Yeah, here's a video of Nancy Pelosi. She can't even like get up from that. Look at her. She's just this is hilarious.
Somebody said at least
it
Jerry Nadler
looks like
knew.
She's making like the freaking sign.
God, somebody said that at least Jerry Nadler knew better. He couldn't get up, so that's why he didn't get down. Somebody said that in the thing. Just terrible.
It's awful.
This is what they give you, the symbolism, the empty platitudes. And it was like we were talking about that statue that went into the water. And it's so significant. But remember, at the end of the day, that doesn't give us what we need. We need to get organized to get what we need. We got to take down the oligarchy, the imperialists down.
And again, we've been talking about Caitlin Johnston a lot because she's an amazing writer. And as someone that writes, I just feel like her writing is
She knows me, fam.
ridiculous. It's
She knows
ridiculously
me.
good. I know she knows you, fam.
Yeah,
This
thank you.
isn't
Just want to point that
it's not
out.
all about you, okay?
All right.
So Nancy Pelosi is kneeling. Typical white guy. Just kidding. Just kidding.
It's nice. It's okay. I love it.
So Nancy Pelosi, of course, and the Democrats like to co-opt movements. And this is an example of that. She talks about how these movements are trying to create real change. And here come the Democrats in the little co-op vehicle trying to make it about them, trying to do their little symbolism. Obama has done it. Nancy Pelosi has done it. All of these freaking Democrats have done it. I forgot to put in Cory Booker's face. He was all like, Cory Booker's a weirdo. And here's just a little bit of what she wrote. She said,
we shall go.
Estragon, we shall go. Vladimir.
Yes, let's go.
They do not move. Curtain. So this
Waiting
is from Waiting for Godot. It's one of my favorite existential type of plays, absurdist type of plays, because it just shows you like how we get caught up in these bureaucracies and these systems and we don't ever get out. We're still doing the same thing over and over again. We keep going through the same type of just crazy situations and we don't learn from them. That's exactly what the Democratic Party are doing. And I'm just going to read this part here. This is also the entire role of the Democratic Party to enthusiastically agree with American support for movements calling for real change, which is benefit ordinary people. While making no actual moves to provide no such changes, the actors read the lines but remain motionless. Again, this is political theater. These people are actors. They're not doing shit for you. They're getting paid to sit around and go through the motions, but they're not really doing anything. It's absurdist. I have said this before, that I'm in an absurdist like play, and it just the same shit keeps happening and we just can't get out of it. I'm just waiting for Godot. I'm just here. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting. And we can't do that anymore. We can't continue waiting for Godot. Godot's not going to come. He's not going to save you. You're going to be in the same situation for a really long time.
I think we also have to talk about the whole, and that's why I said it's kind of worse to allow the Republicans in their ideology are just so off, in my personal opinion, and a lot of people's opinions in this room. They believe strongly, they're theocrats of sorts. They believe strongly in the word of God. That's why they're anti-abortion sometimes and whatnot. And that was the whole dangerous part about Kavanaugh is like, we're talking about a potential situation, which I'm not saying isn't important, it isn't devastating, isn't tragic, but they didn't even go at the fact that this guy was going to overturn Roe v. versus Wade down the road, and we didn't need to put another theocrat on that court. They didn't even attack that.
No.
But at least the Republicans are who they say they are.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right now, a lot of Republicans are taking a stance on we shouldn't defund the police. This is ridiculous. We have to stand by police. Now, they're wrong, but they're going to stand that way. And here you go on the left. They say one thing, they do another.
Right.
They say one thing, they vote another way. They screw you in the end. They are more dangerous right now. That's why when it comes to Trump and Biden, gun to my head, you don't even have to put the gun there. Trump. Because once again, if we put a person in like a Biden or allow these Democrats right here that are on the ground kneeling in a bunch of empty symbolism, we're just going to get further down the way and further away from real progressive change.
We're just going to get a worse, more right-wing candidate the next time. That's what would happen.
And I want to comment on this real quick. So on Instagram, I follow this page. It's called Today Years Old. They post really good memes, and they posted the picture of all those Democrats in there, and with someone's comment. Black Americans comment, politicians are so performative. Like, why are they kneeling when they could literally change the law? Like, get up and perform your job. So then a lot of the comments I was shocked to see was like, change what law? There's no law for racism. Or make a law that just ends racism. Why didn't we think of this earlier? Or gotta vote and just change the law like that. So what I see is that a lot of people are uneducated online, and basically like what I was saying is like, okay, what do you say to those people? What do you guys say to those people? Because what I say is, well, to start, abolish private prisons, which target and keep people in the system, primarily people of color. Yeah, I
mean, there are a lot of poor white people across the country that are in jail for drugs too, as well.
Of course,
decriminalization of marijuana would be a great start too, as
well.
Marijuana,
expunge all previous records of marijuana, allow felons to vote, universal basic income, Medicare for all, not voting to increase the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act.
Yep.
And so it's lower than what we spend on education, divesting from oil and investing into clean energy because climate change affects lower income communities the most.
Yep.
And that's a good start. And then Instagram like blocked me from making those comments because I kept making that comment.
Dude, look at the comments that were coming up in the chat when they said Democrats and they were waiting for approval. You know what I'm saying? If you try to chastise them in any way, shape, or form, remember they own these fascist bastards own the media. You know what I'm saying? The neoliberal order. They control the narrative. And you just have to simply look at their voting record. The Democrats have abandoned labor. Let's talk about labor. They abandoned labor in the 70s. They haven't put one piece of legislation that would help labor across this country. So just look at their actions. Behind the scenes, their votes, not their actions in front of the scenes. This to me is disgusting. I think they're exposed, fam.
I just want to say, Jonathan, that in the comment section, too, you're going to get a lot of right-wing trolls, and some of those are just right-wing trolls. Some people know that they know everything you said. They know it, and some people are still not going to change their mind because there is that inherent racism.
Majority of people do not know it.
I
still think the majority of people listen to mainstream media, which never brings up.
But young people aren't really listening to mainstream media. That's the thing. I think some of the young people that are like that are learning it from their parents. And they're being grossly miseducated. We're all miseducated here from the start because we're learning from a Western American history book. We're not learning from the Native American, their point of view. We're not learning from the African point of view, the slave point of view. We're taking a textbook written by white people, white scholars who learned something from white scholars. In order to, again, this goes back to we need to change the whole system. The whole system of oppression needs to be dismantled. This is why you can't just say it's one thing. And a lot of these people don't understand that too. And I agree that it's a lot of miseducation, but I also think this country is young and this country is still inherently, there's a lot of racism. There just is. And that's something we have to come to terms with. It's not just difference of opinion always.
I think a lot of the younger people, though, they've wisened up. They see, they understand, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot had to do, Dr. Cornel West talked about jazz, the influence it had to build building bridges between musicians and how it really, white people and black people come together. And I think hip hop did that too as well nowadays. In fact, you talk about Lil Wayne, the biggest purchases of his albums have always been white poor people in the ghettos and the subs, Arkansas and all these other places. So I mean, I think I like what I see, and I'd like to build on that, but understanding. And I think there's something, fam, when I say that, I think 75% of the racists are going to be dead off. There are a lot of older people who are programmed this way. They're going to be gone in about 10 years. So we just got to convince the other 25% that are left that, hey, man, it's not about, the color of our skin. It's about the beating of our hearts and the blood that runs through us that is the same. And we need to come together and stop these elitist oligarchs and these imperialists. Because when you're talking about Joe Biden's VP, right?
Well, first, I want to go back to Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders because, unfortunately, for a lot of people, we thought Bernie Sanders was a little bit weak, and some would say flat out weak on racial issues regarding African Americans. He was criticized a lot, rightfully so. I don't think he had the best. He was equipped for that the first time. He kind of got a little bit better, but still, I don't think he had the right people. He should have had more influence from Cornel West, more influence from Nina Turner. I think having Nina Turner on his team was a good thing. But at the same time, I don't think Bernie Sanders has learned because right now he is saying, just like Biden and the Democrats, they are shutting down the roads to defunding the police. Bernie Sanders said we can't defund the police because we need to give money to police departments so they can reform and restruct and rebuild. Bernie Sanders doesn't understand what defunding the police means. Somebody has to educate him. I asked somebody, a person that is a person that he needs to speak to Dr. Cornel West because Dr. Cornel West is all on board for defunding the police. Bernie Sanders is not aware of what it means because defunding the police, again, for the umpteenth time, doesn't mean that we're not going to have police officers of any kind. It just means they're going to be police officers. It just means they're not going to be shooting unarmed people of color dead. It means that they're going to be demilitarized. It means that this money that we were also putting into criminalization of poverty is going to go into where it needs to go, back to the people. And that's what it means.
I have a question because I heard somebody say this the other day. Do you think defund the police is the wrong message. It can be misconstrued. I know that we are all aboard because I talked about it. Well, we need to remake the police is what I think we need to do. We need to demilitarize the police is what we need to do.
Well, people say that too.
But I think with the common voter and stuff across America, they're going to see defund the police. Even like our last guest had to come back and explain, listen, I think police should be here, but this is what we have to do. Do you think defund the police is once again the wrong message because it is very nuanced on what it really means? And I think a lot of people across America are going to be like, I don't want to defund them. Demilitarize, remake. What are you guys'
Because
opinion?
We're not remaking. We're not reforming. We're
Reform
rebuilding. We're not reforming. That's the thing.
Remake is not the word?
No, because remake means like you're taking what's already there and remaking it. See, that's the thing. If we get stuck on semantics, I'm just fed up with that. Why? I'm so fed up with it.
I know, but we are. But the common voter out there, they
You mean the white common voter?
It's the white police officers.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we don't like the term defund the police, and they focus on that.
What about the people being killed? What about the injustices? I mean, I just feel like I'm just sick and tired of having to come down and change a word just so people can feel good about it when people are fucking dying. It really does something to me. I just they're going to have a problem with it no matter what the hell you call it. And defund the police, people are like, well, it takes forever to explain what you're talking about. It's policy. Americans are lazy. You have to go read and understand policy. We don't do that in this country. You go to Europe, people know exactly what's going on in their governments. We don't do that. We're not used to that. We're used to having little snippets of information and taking that to mean something. Go fucking educate yourself, because at this point I'm just sick and tired of that burden once again being on and people are doing it. African Americans are educating people as to what it means, but it's always on them. And it's like we're focused on the semantics of it. We're not focused on the actual policy.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, Fiorella, but I understand when other people say, well, we don't necessarily want to defund the police. We want to demilitarize it.
No, we do want to defund the police.
No, this is what certain people say. We want to spend the money in other areas. You know what I'm saying? We want to have more peace offers, more training, less militarized weapons, you know what I'm saying, and more money for actually training police. I think police get trained. First of all, we have to change the training, so I agree with you. We have to start from scratch and go back up. But also, we need a lot more training. It shouldn't take you 6 years to be a lawyer and just 6 weeks to be a cop. Well, yeah. And that costs money to do so. So I understand the clouding of the waters, whatnot, just because we want to say, hey, defund the police and get people aboard on it. Some people are just going to misconstrue this in a different way.
Some people aren't misconstruing it in a different way. Some people are just against it and they just can't come out and say it. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's, again, the burden we're talking about.
And some people just want to keep things the way they are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day.
And I think they're completely wrong to want to keep things the way they are. So,
and just adding on to the tokenizing, of course, of black people, here's Joe Biden, an opinion on the Joe Biden should have Condoleezza Rice as his vice president.
This is imperialism.
Well, she's black, so I guess that's progressive, right, Pasta? Can you tell me about Condoleezza Rice? Who is she?
Okay,
Fam?
Condoleezza Rice has a lot to pay when it comes to the pro-Russian rhetoric, the witch hunt with another nuclear nation. She is imperialist all the way. All Obama's decisions when it came to his foreign policies, she was at the helm for it. She was the one who went out there and whipping people for the mentality to get behind this. Condoleezza Rice is not somebody you want to have as the vice president. He's actually going the opposite way. George Bush. Wait. Susan Rice is the one they were talking about. The other Rice. I'm so sorry. Condoleezza Rice was George Bush's.
Yeah, George Bush.
George Bush's. Now, once again, I guess he's trying to get Republicans of sorts, whatnot. Yeah. But she was a neocon through and through. Condoleezza Rice.
I think he's trying to tokenize.
He is.
Because he said he was going to pick a woman of color, whatever. He thinks a woman of color should be a vice president. Yeah. Of course, Elizabeth Warren also counts. But Condoleezza Rice is a Republican. I mean, she's literally like, what's the woman, the commentator's name? Who's... No. I forget her name.
Candace Owens?
Candace Owens.
Yeah,
she's typical like Candace Owens. I mean, she's just like that. And I think he's counting on people being ignorant and not knowing who Condoleezza Rice is and just saying the black woman. And he's wrong.
They floated Susan Rice too before. Wrong. They floated Susan Rice as well. Either Rice, we're talking about
Kamala
imperialist.
Harris too.
Another one. You know what I'm saying?
Prosecutor.
Oh my God.
Of putting black and brown people in jail. I mean, these are things that we have to, as progressives, and as citizen journalists, as everybody, especially us, we constantly talk about Kamala Harris's record. We constantly talk about people like her because they get away with their leading with identity politics, but they have zero solutions. In fact, they have hurt Black people and brown people and all kinds of people, poor people, with their policies. So I think it's something that we constantly have to remind people because not everybody is as educated as we are on who these people are.
So we have some people who are talking about some stuff that we want to talk about. President Jafar, note to Democrats, all Black people are not from Ghana. It's about their clause over there. Thing.
Which one?
Okay.
No.
Here's one. Richard Carlington. Thank you for the super chat contributions. Always appreciated on the couch. Thoughts on disband versus defund? Isn't disbanding better? Disbanding is not abolishing. Fam?
Defunding isn't abolishing the entirety of being a police officer. We need a type of officer, but they're looking at it more as community policing. And again, and I said this on my Facebook post, it means different things to different people. Why? Because we haven't really had the conversation. We haven't really gone down to it. Some people are in favor of completely abolishing a police system because they say it derives from a system of slavery. Some people actually don't want to have police. They want to have other people look at and monitor things. I don't think America's going to do that. I think the people who are saying defund the police, it means disband in the way that it has been for years, because right now it's built on a system of oppression. So you can't just reform it. You can't reform a gang. You can't reform the mafia. You can't reform the Democratic Party. You can't reform the police department. You have to start it anew. So I think we're getting too caught up into the semantics. We need to talk about what it means, because people are getting so that's why I'm asking people, Black people specifically, what does it mean to defund the police to you? Because I can ask the gentleman we interviewed earlier today, and then I can ask somebody else, and it means two things to different people. But we just have to come to an agreement as to what it means. But overall, it does not mean that we're abolishing the idea of having somebody there to look out for you when something gets stolen. I had my car broken into. There was a sheriff. I believe he was a park ranger, and he that was his job. Okay, I'm going to take your report. Blah blah blah. Does he need an AK-47? No, he doesn't. But this is a common thing. These are things we have to look at. And that's why people are so confused, because we've never actually sat down as Americans and discussed policy. We've been too busy listening to what politicians say, taking it for the superficial, what's on top of it. And we've just been, with it. And that's got to change. We have to go deep into the policy now.
Keep it real. Give a $5 super chat contribution. Thank you so much. Freedom Tribe hanging out there says Fia's not playing today. And Gamer for Life says, I love when Fiorella gets her rants. A lot of people they're getting you fires. Even Tony watches closely. Thank you, Tony watches closely. Your super chat contribution is always appreciated on the couch. It says, I love that firing Fee, and I agree with her. Fam, they're agreeing with you today. I just think there's a lot of opportunities for people on the other side to take that word defund and twist it. And really twist it and play to their advantage and say, look at these people. They want open borders. They don't want any police.
But they're going to do that anyway.
Yeah, but if we are better in our messaging, don't they have less chances to persuade certain people? Wouldn't disbanding the police maybe be better than?
Don't they always have a message?
They always have a
problem
though.
with the
but
message?
because we're always, sometimes on the left, we're always simple and we allow them to do that. We have to be smarter and better than them. I'm not disagreeing with you guys. I'm just being.
I know.
A little bit, you're a devil's advocate over here. You know how I feel about the police, man. It's like, they are the arm of the imperialistic fucking oligarchs, and they need to be fucking broken down, and we need, I have this whole plan about how I want to train police. I want to have more peace officers, more training. I want to have the right training. I want all of them to take a keto. I really want them to be fit and take a keto, because I want them to get somebody on the ground and hold them down. No more choking, no more shooting, not at the leg, Joe Biden, all that shit. So, I mean, I understand what people are saying with the concerns, the way it could be twisted to that independent voter. That's who I'm worried about. How do we keep them not drifting away? That's all I'm saying.
And us personally, we don't want to completely abolish the police, right?
As long as alcohol is legal, I want there to be some form of security.
Exactly. Me personally, I want the system. You have the system here. Break that system. Take the people in it. Put it in another system. Take make sure it's lower funding for militarization, and And also, I saw on a thread that police were complaining that they're also that they used to be able to take crazy people to mental hospitals, but now they can't do that because mental hospitals don't have funding.
Yeah.
So
they take them to jail.
But all the funding is going to
the police
criminalizing. Yeah, exactly.
And that's part of defunding the police. And we don't support abolishing it completely, right? You guys don't, right?
No. I do ideologically. In the future,
you're saying like no cops at all.
Not in the way that they are created. Myself personally, but I don't believe.
What would you see then?
I would see more of the like a community type of policing, in my opinion, that would be less structured. It's less centralized and less of an arm of the oligarchy. The problem is right now we're looking at an arm of the oligarchy as policing. I don't think America is ready to use the word abolish. I think people would go crazy. We're already going crazy with defund. But there are people that I've talked to that are adamant about abolishing the police. The vast majority of people want to defund the police, want to create something new, a different way of policing. And I think that's the first step. We create more, what he said, peace officers. You go to Europe, they have batons. They're not really heavily armed. They focus on policing. You let the social workers do what the social workers do. There needs to be more communication between social workers, between psychologists, between all these like interactions that happen in our community. For me, it should come from the community. The community should decide if a person, for instance, should be going through rehabilitation or should be going to prison. We want to see prison as a last resort when we're talking about decriminalization. Again, we shouldn't put drug addicts in jail. That's not going to help them, right?
Let me tell you something. Here's something you also have to think about too. We have the prison industrial complex, right? The elites and the oligarchs are tied to that. They depend on putting people in those beds in those prisons. So here's one of the areas where they don't put any funding in, the screening processes. Same thing with the priest. Same thing with the cops. It allows a weak screening process where you don't do psychiatric evaluations and you go deep into the mind of these people. It allows sex offenders and pedophiles to become priests.
Yeah.
It allows racist cops to get by because the screening process doesn't cover that. And that is by design because the prison industrial complex has to fill those beds. So that's when we say we have to spend more money. We got to spend more money right there.
Yeah.
Because they have to be evaluated as they are going through training, which should be twice as long. So if we have a racist person, we catch them and we do not let them have a gun and a baton. Sorry, fam. That's another thing I would do big time, John. I would do it in the priesthood too as well. How do you let these pedophiles get through because you're not screening them properly?
But defunding the police does not mean abolishing the police entirely. Yeah. It just doesn't. Not for most people.
Unfortunately, there is some wiggle room there, Fee. I agree with you. Once again, our message is it's like the believe women thing, right?
Yeah.
I always thought it should be listen to women because women are not being heard. But to say we have to believe all of them, I'm sorry. I just don't believe Sarah Palin when she talks. When that woman says, you got Putin over there and that over there, and let me tell you, when Michelle Bachmann speaks her stupid, disgusting ideology, I don't believe them. But that's what you do when you leave general, vague terms out there to be your rallying cry. I know it means something different, but sometimes the message has to be in the title. Sometimes I feel that when it comes to like restaurants, when I talked about open up another restaurant, I want to open a restaurant called Craft or Knack because it talked in the message, the title is there. It's craft food. Well, we have to do the same thing too as well. When it's got to be a little bit more nuanced and we have to explain it, that's when we can get into trouble because other people will take it and twist it. Just the way they twisted the open borders argument, they're twisting this as well. So
I just agree to disagree because I just don't think it should fall on the oppressed people to continuously placate to, okay, let me word this better so you're more comfortable with it, because at the end of the day, you can word it better. They're still not going to like it because they're against it.
But maybe we do get more people.
Maybe.
Yeah, who
maybe.
knows? All right.
So Kashama Sawa is somebody I really admire, that I really love. I literally want to go to Seattle tomorrow to just organize with her because she's freaking amazing. And she's doing a lot of great community work. And she's one of these type of activists. And she's a city council member who have a really good sense of what's happening on the local level. And they also have a good sense on how to grow it on the macro level, how it can affect everything else, right? She took on Amazon. She's taking on the police right now in Seattle in ways that are unprecedented. So Common Dreams wrote a great article of hers. So the Geneva Convention pretty much says that you cannot gas peaceful protesters tear gas has a lot of chemicals. A young woman died 2 days after being tear gassed. I mean, we don't really know if that's 100% the cause, but it has a lot of chemicals that affect people negatively. I mean, Tina was tear gassed as well. It's really, you feel like you're going to die. You can't breathe. And the police were supposed to follow an order that said, no, you cannot tear gas these people, and they completely broke it, and they started tear gassing, and among them, of course, was Kshama Sawant. She was there fighting with the people, and so now she's telling the Seattle mayor that he needs to step down because this is unacceptable, right? And the Seattle mayor had promised that the law enforcement would stop deploying the tear gas, but then they didn't, and she said this is a wild abuse of power. And here is a little video of what they were doing. Let's just play a little bit of that video.
Protesters are throwing things back. There's a table right now. This is what's being just looked into the street right now. People are trying to kick it back.
It looks like a battlefield. There's no way that that's what it should look like when there are peaceful protesters. And that reminds us of what happened here before the ACLU and other protesters started suing the police. That's when they started backing up, because they came in here all gung-ho with the military, with their military grade weapons, with their tear gassing, with their rubber bullets. They came in all gung-ho. And they thought they were going to have no consequences, but the people fought back. The ACLU fought back. In this case, Kshama Sawant, the city council that is primarily very leftist. She is a socialist. She's not even she's a full-on socialist. Yeah, definitely a populist. And she demanded that Durkin Google the Geneva Convention to know what tear gas is all about, and citing the international protocol ban on using the chemical weapon on civilians. She was among those gassed and attacked on Sunday. So she wants him to resign. And she talked about this. This is shameful. This is a 30-day tear gas pause. It's totally meaningless. So again, they didn't respect their own law that they passed. It's absolutely ridiculous. And there's another one here by the New York Times, a little video right there that we can play. It's in the article, and it says a person drove into a crowd of Seattle protesters on Sunday night. Authorities said one person was shot. The Seattle Police Department said the driver was in custody. So there's a little video.
Can we
of what
play that
happened
video?
There.
I saw that.
Oh God, let it gun. He's got a gun. He's got a gun. Oh God. Oh my God. Oh no. Why is he getting alive? Oh God. Oh God.
Okay. So, another thing Kshama was talking about was the peaceful multiracial General Assembly outside of Capitol Hill. This battle was won by the protest movement. We need to build on it immediately and peacefully escalate to win anything substantial like defund the police by 50%. Public meeting to discuss strategy tomorrow at 6 p.m. Call Anderson. This right here is brilliant. And let me tell you why. She's an organizer, but she's also a politician, and she's an activist. She's on the streets with the people right here, and she's going and taking that and saying, okay, this is what we just did. We're winning. Tomorrow we're going to meet and we're going to follow up on how to make this happen. So she's taking the activism into the city council and trying to make this law. And that is something that is so difficult to do. I mean, let me put out AOC, for instance. AOC for example, is a congresswoman who, instead of doing what Kashama is doing, by the way, AOC has millions of more followers than Kashama. This is how you know Kashama's doing the work. She's not on Twitter all the time talking about how Republicans suck. She's literally on the ground with the protesters and then taking this back into her local community. That is what AOC should be doing.
Yeah.
Instead of placating to the establishment, Kashama's like, oh, yeah, no, we're going to do this our way. We're going to go in the streets and then we're going to take it into the community. That is what I need to see from people like the squad.
Yeah.
That is what I need to see.
Can I tell you something? I'm going to give you a little forecast of 2024 presidential race. Ready? Kashama Sawant will be running with the Green Party for president with Ajamu Baraka as her vice president against the Democrats Mitt Romney and Kamala Harris against the Republicans Liz Cheney. And to be determined who else will be the guy. I think the congressman with the patch on the eye, the ex-veteran from North Carolina. I forget his name. He will be the Republican vice president. I think he's been on Joe Rogan before as well, and he'll be behind Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney will attempt to be the first female president, but Kashama Sawant's going to come in there, and we're going to have a first Green Party candidate for president.
Interesting.
Ajamu
Ajamu
behind her.
She's part of Socialist Alternative, so I know she's very dedicated to them. I mean, I don't know. She might run under a socialist party, but I think she's a very, she's able to think in the micro and the macros. And here's one other tweet she said. My Socialist Council office and our people's budget has for 6 years brought forward cutting police budget and funding housing services. Several current council members voted no year after year on cutting police budget in the past. Our movement is forcing them now. Defund the police. Okay, so Kashama Sawant is again, right now, the movement that is happening, she is jumping on that and saying, look, we have the receipts. We have been fighting for this for a while. And so because she has been doing that for a while, now she can be like, okay, now they're forced to do this, because if they don't do this, they look like assholes and they're going to get voted out. The city council in Seattle is no joke. I mean, they have she has built this sort of force, this sort of opposition, an actual opposition to the establishment. That is not what people like AOC are doing. This is why I criticize AOC, because people are like, oh, well, no, maybe she's just playing the game. So Pelosi endorsed her now. So see, like maybe, she's going to be progressive anyway. It never works, you guys. It never works. They change you. You don't change them. And by the way, she could have the people on her side. Kashama has the people on her side. That is the only reason she's successful, is because she has people on her side. She's doing what we need to be doing. Instead, AOC is placating to Nancy Pelosi because she wants to keep her seat. That is not how we change things. We change things by taking action on the streets and bringing that into the electoral politics.
Yep. I was disappointed as a Tulsi supporter to see Tulsi against defunding the police, says President Jafar. I am disappointed too. I am disappointed in her support for Bill H.R. 666. I am disappointed in her, standing with Clyburn the other day, because I don't like Jim Clyburn and certain things. I mean, he might have said something wise to the effect, but once again, I'm not happy with everything that Tulsi does. And I hope she comes on the show and talks a little MMA with me, because I love to talk about the new MMA fights. Richard Mays, thank you for the super chat contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch, fam. End poverty and income inequality, and the only crime left for the cops will be white collar. Otherwise, peace officers, counselors, and advocates is what we need, says Richard Mays. And that girl, she is that girl. Thank you, that girl, so much. She didn't say much, but she left us a beautiful super chat contribution. That girl, you've been doing that for us. You are that girl, and that's why we love that girl. Fam, I'm sorry. Let me get you back to the folder. So
we missed a super chat earlier.
Which one?
Richard May. End poverty and income inequality, and the only crime left for the cops will be white. Oh, okay.
He did just read it.
I missed that.
It's okay. You're doing many things. He's on the ones and twos. See how hard he's got to spin to the crowd. You got to know when to get your next song in there. You got to know when to scratch. You got to know when to transform. Well, Johnny has all those things. You get this picture, that article, there and there. That's why I said, like, what Johnny does is kind of like on the ones and twos, fam. He's playing to the voices, the crowd.
And then, Johnny, can we just play a little bit of the video from the Seattle City Hall? The Black Lives Matter protesters took over the Seattle City Hall. People there were saying they've never seen anything like it. And again, this is somebody like Kashama Sawant. Pretty much much understanding. She's a socialist, right? So she looks at the oligarchy as the problem, capitalism as the problem. This is how you unite that ideology and that plight against the oligarchy with this. That is how you do it. You do it by saying, you know, we as the people have to come together and fight against this because this is unlawful. You shouldn't be treating people like this. You're infringing on our liberties. This is how you do it. I think it's so hard for people to do this because it's not second nature to do it. And I think it's something we can all learn from. And I think years later in history, we're going to be finally understanding the significance of having that politicians that can do both, especially at a time like this. Speaking of city councils, unlike in Seattle, who has Kashama Sawant, the San Diego City Council voted to increase police funding 8-1. Only one person voted against that. And I know all my friends in San Diego, James Elia, Mark Lane, they were all upset about this. They're saying this is ridiculous right now. Instead of defunding the police, they're actually increasing the funding, which is what we did here until we spoke up. So I encourage people in San Diego to protest against that. As it is something that is really, really.
I was so against that, but now I'm like so for it. It's like go to their houses. I was like, I don't like doxing myself, whatnot, but I wanted to go into Garcetti's house. Yeah. And what did they do, fam? They went after him for the people's budget. You're spending the money on the LA Police Department. Yep. Oh no. Yep. We're gonna be making s'mores, hot dogs, burgers out here. Yep. We ain't going nowhere. We're pitching tents. We're gonna be out in front of your house. We're gonna devaluate your property value if you don't come out and face the people, and if you don't vote the way the people want you to vote.
Exactly. And that's why more than 4,400 San Diego residents flooded City Hall with phone calls and emails on Monday demanding the city, the city police, reduce police funding and redirect the money towards rent relief, mental health, and boosting the local minority community. Again, if you're going to do that, I love this. Have the solution. Say, where's this money going to go? It's going to go here. I think a lot of people, like we were all saying, still don't understand what it means to defund the police. They think it means to get rid of the police entirely. That's not what people are saying. People want that money to go back into the community, instead into the prison system. That's ultimately what it is. We want the money to go into where it should go. We want the training to be different. We want the police officers to be different.
Yes.
That's what it means.
I think that's a fight we've been going on for a long time. When Bernie Sanders came to the forefront and said, education for all, free college, you know what I'm saying, free health care. People are like, oh, you just want free stuff. It's really not free. We're just allotting our tax resources.
We're already paying for it.
Exactly. Instead of paying for this over here, let's move this money over here and put it over there. I mean, that's been the libertarian argument for years. Like, let's stop going into these other countries and bring it home. But that was their big argument. It was like they were on the game. Fiscally, they said we shouldn't be spending our money. We should be spending it here. Now, it's for different reasons, fam. We understand this. We talk about that. But once again, if we can get that money away from over there and put it over there, like you said, it's nothing free. We're already paying for it. Let's just put the money where we want to put it. Let's put the money for the actual people. But that's what the fucking Democrats do. They put it in other places where we don't get the money. And they go along with the Republican rhetoric when they're telling us they're fighting for us by going down on one knee.
Yeah, it's just all symbolic. So on Twitter, there's this video that there was a rumor that during the blackout in D.C., the police were putting protesters in unmarked cars. And this person says that the police were putting these protesters in unmarked cars. They said armed identified men abducting women on the street, placing them in unmarked cars, and threatening to shoot anyone who questions. So let's watch a little bit of this and see. Okay. I haven't seen much of it, but this is the beginning.
No, she did not. We watched her. She put her hand up. She put her hand up.
I'm right here.
She's going to come with us. Don't hurt her. No, don't hurt her. Hey, don't get hurt. Okay, why are you putting a flashlight in my face?
Yo, what the fuck? This is an unmarked car. Who is this?
Okay.
Who are you?
Wow.
Hey, you know what the rumor is, fam?
What is happening?
The rumor is that Trump's going around and rounding up Antifa leaders and putting that, because your girl Cassandra Fairbanks put that on there. It was like, this is not like a Black Lives Matter organizer or whatnot. You know, it's just some white chick, whatnot. And they were saying that they were going after Antifa leaders, grounding them up and taking them off. Now, I don't know if that rumor's true, and I don't know who this is, but in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Once again, about our civil liberties and everything. Right?
Yeah, first of all, you can't round up Antifa because everybody, wait a minute. Your grandparents were anti-fascist, by the way, because they fought in World War II. And the World War II, they fought against fascists in Germany. They fought against the Nazi regime. Those people are anti-fascist. So if you're going to jail anti-fascists, please go jail your grandparents if they're still alive, because that's what it means. Antifa is not a structured organization. It just literally means anti-fascist.
Yes.
So to be looking for to these people as these are the writers, the causes. The only writing we've seen has the majority of it has come from people who have nothing to do with the movement and are just there to take advantage of it. They could be, some of them have been policemen, some of them have been whatever, we don't know. But to say that these people are Antifa is jumping the gun. Now also, do not get into an unmarked car. I mean, that is like,
they threw her in
I know,
there.
this is ridiculous. That to me is like,
Yeah.
how are you I'm sorry, there have been cases, and my dad would talk to me about this all the time. If you ever get stopped by a cop, and make sure it's an actual cop, because women have been raped by people pretending to be police officers who aren't even police officers, and they don't even have a marked vehicle, and they tell them, oh, I'm a police officer. They have a fake badge.
Yeah, but they grabbed her and they threw her, and she tried to resist to get in.
I
so
just think that's
she did fight off. And let me say this about the Antifa thing, because we did read the statement about it's like not an organized group. It's just kind of a movement. It is cliquey and clannish. There are people who get together that are of that Antifa mentality, and they organize things they do. So we can't say that there isn't a form of organization within the Antifa movement, because there is. And that's what this is. A lot of people say this is about taking some of the heads of those dragons of Antifa, rounding them up.
But you don't know
away.
who they are, though. You're making assumptions based on that's what they're doing, and you're making assumptions based
I'm not
on
making
what they're
assumptions.
organizing.
No. I haven't been in their organized rooms, but they get together and organize. Fam, there are people and stuff. I've talked to Killer Cam about this, who knows a lot of them and stuff. They get together, fam. They work as groups. So, I mean, I'm not making assumptions. People plan stuff together. A lot of Antifa members plan shit together. Not members, but of the Antifa mindset, get together and go hit the streets together.
I guess I should be then taken into prison because I'm
never said
anti-fascist.
that you should be taken
No,
into
I'm not
prison.
saying you're saying that, but I'm just saying I'm not getting in a room and play. The majority of people don't do that. The majority of this is organic, and they just say we're anti-fascist, we're against it. People are going to have various different opinions and tactics as to how to go about this. But I mean, is it really harmful for people who are against fascism to really get in a room together and talk about how we're going to defeat fascism? I don't really think so. We're in the middle of fascism right now, both from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Our civil liberties are being pushed on us. So why am I going to focus my hatred on Antifa? Like, I think this is why Donald Trump is making mistakes here. If this has anything to do with Donald Trump, this is a mistake, because you're literally going after people you don't even know who they're affiliated with.
That cop said, if you follow us, you will be shot, right? Didn't he say that at the end? Watch it at the very end there. Watch what he says.
Fuck! This is an unmarked car! Who is this? Who are you?
You follow us, you will get shot. You understand me?
What is happening?
Where's she going? They're fine. Where's she going?
Where are you taking her? Where? You have to tell us where you're taking her. Where are you going? Where are you going? Help us! Help us! Who is this? Who the fuck?
One guy says, if you follow us, you will be shot. That is some scary fucking shit. That is fascism. Right there. That is fascism. I mean, rounding people up.
Okay, and just we'll start finishing up. I think the last segment we'll just cut out because I have to.
Which one here? This one?
No. So George Floyd is laid to rest in Texas. That was yesterday.
Yeah.
He was laid to rest. They had a whole procession. A lot of people came in and spoke. He had a lot of people there that were pretty much just, paying the respects to what he has done, what he has sparked in this sort of Black Lives Matter movement. And it's really telling that somebody, I don't think he expected to change the world like this. His little daughter was the one that was talking about that he changed the world, and we've seen all the money that has gone into people like George Floyd's family, Ahmaud Arbery. We've seen this sort of happen, and people are starting to rise up. It's very important what's happening. I believe it is a first step in getting us to actually go and attack where we need to be. I think America needed a first step. I think if we were a different country, we might have not, but I think America did need the first step. And there's a video here of Dr. Cornel West talking to Anderson Cooper, where he gets, Anderson Cooper gets emotional. It's a 11-minute or 9-minute video, but we're only gonna watch the first 2.5 minutes of it. And let's just listen to how Dr. Cornel West is addressing this.
The chants of "We will breathe" outside of the church. I'm wondering what was going through your mind and your heart.
It was a heavy day, my brother. And yet I was buoyed up because I saw in the hearts and minds and souls, not just of the Floyd family, but of the church, of the music, of the preaching, a love, not one reference to hatred or revenge. It was all about love and justice. It's in the great tradition of the best of Black people, a people who have been hated chronically, systemically for 400 years, but have taught the world so much about love and how to love. You saw John Coltrane's Love Supreme in that church service. You saw the love of the children on Marvin Gaye's What's Going On and Toni Morrison's Beloved. You saw Mama Raising in the Sun of Lorraine Hansberry. White America ought to give Black people a standing ovation that after 400 years of being terrorized, we refuse to create a Black version of the Ku Klux Klan. After 400 years of being traumatized, we want to dish out healers. That's Frederick Douglass. That's Martin King. That's Curtis Mayfield. That's Fannie Lou Hamer. What is it about these Black people? So thoroughly subjugated, but want freedom for everybody. That's a grand gift to the world, right in the bowels, at the center of an American empire that is enslaved, Jim Crow, Jane Crow, lynched them, still dishing out these love warriors. That's what I saw in the Floyd family, and I was buoyed up. It reminded me of the West family, reminded me of Irene and Cliff and Cynthia and Cheryl. That's where we come from. Shiloh Baptist Church. You can put us down, but you're not going to put us down in such a way that we're going to hate you because you become the point of reference. No, we're going to put a smile on Larcenia's face. That's his mama. That's where he is right now. He's lying right next to Sister Larcenia, whose way of engaging the world was embracing it with all the love. Now, I'm not saying we don't have Black thugs and gangsters. I'm talking about the best of our tradition. Because brother, if we had created a Black version of the Ku Klux Klan, there'd been a civil war every generation with terrorist cells in every hood. And that's what Brother Trump needs to understand, because it looks like he's trying to push us to the race war. But the good news is, if there was a race war, we got a whole lot of white brothers and sisters on our side now. That makes a big difference. And we got Black folk and red folk and indigenous peoples and Asians and so forth. This is a matter of integrity and honesty, a matter of justice and love. They kept it on the high ground. That was a beautiful thing. But I did break, though, brother, when I saw those brothers marching in.
Okay. So, yeah, as always, Dr. Cornel West has a way of explaining things in a way of, and bringing it back to, unity, peace, prosperity. That was nice with Anderson Cooper. But not so nice, fam, when he tried to go on Sean Hannity. Now, for the record, my mom would sometimes put on Sean Hannity to
loves Sean Hannity.
To listen to no. My mom despises Sean Hannity.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
But she would put it on so I could hear, and I would just get so angry. I'm like, how does this guy exist? He's disgusting. I hate him. I hate him. I really, really dislike Sean Hannity.
Yeah. My mom has moved away from Sean Hannity. Now she's Tucker. She's Tucker, right,
that's
Mom?
That's an improvement.
And, Mom, we didn't curse today. Give us some love, Mom. Thank you. Dr. Cornel
so,
West loses it here, though, on Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
We have civil rights attorney Leo Terrell, along with the co-host of the Tightrope podcast, professor at the ever-prestigious Harvard University, Dr. Cornel West. Every liberal big city, Chicago, run decades by Democrats. They've allowed the violence, and they have failed our American children with the most horrific schools in the country.
Goes to the police. They don't have enough housing. They don't have enough education, and they certainly don't have enough jobs with a living wage. That's under Rahm Emanuel. Now, I'm no fan of Rahm Emanuel, but I'm certainly no supporter, as you know, of you and your good friend, Brother Trump himself.
Why didn't Rahm Emanuel? Why did he not fix the violence?
But I'm going at you in the name of truth.
Okay, Leo, why didn't he fix the violence? Why haven't they fixed our broken school systems? We have failed America's children.
You know, Sean, you asked Dr. Cornel West the type of question you asked in the court of law. He won't answer them because he's just giving you old talking points. I'll speak to you, Dr. Cornel West, black man to black man. There's looting going on, and you try to conflate. No, it's my turn. It's my turn. You try to conflate protesting and police misconduct. And shame on you. And you're absolutely wrong. You won't address the issue. You will refuse to address the issue because I'm talking to you. You're not my brother. You're not my brother. You are hurting black people by acting this position. You are taking the wrong position. No, my brother. That stuff plays out. That plays out. Address the question. Do you? Oh my gosh! You have lost control. You're a dinosaur. You're an outright dinosaur. You have lost it, sir. I'm not part of your group. I'm not part of your group. You have lost it. You are a dinosaur. And you know what? He's trying to you a Neolithic, you are wrong. Brother. You are wrong, my friend. No, I don't think so. Because your position is so way off. I will not respect that.
You come out of the block disrespecting people. Yeah, you disrespect me the day that Brother Floyd is
and do all you want. That does not work on me. That does not work on me. You're not my brother. Keep saying that. It's all talking points. Old talking points. Those are old talking points.
Hang on, guys.
It just goes on like that for the next 3 minutes. They never get a word in. They fight, and yeah, I love when Dr. Cornel West says, "You are a neoliberal."
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. He can call himself a Republican. At the end of the day, neoliberal, neocon, they're on the same side here. Dr. Cornel West makes a great point here. I understand the Republicans saying the Democrats. What have the Democrats done? Look, all the poverty, all this. They're right. The Democrats. But Dr. Cornel West is attacking the Democratic establishment as well. He's not saying that they're he's talking about neoliberalism. And that's the retort of Republicans who also forget that whenever a progressive tries to bring, like Bernie Sanders, something new to the table, does to put some legislation in there, they stand and block it too. So really, like, they're both really doing shit for the American people. And I think it would have been nice to hear a discussion, but I understand the emotion behind it because it's interesting seeing two black men argue and completely disagree. And this is what the neoliberal and the neocon establishment have done. They have tokenized the black identity. That's why he's so upset. Dr. Cornel West is so upset because it's like this man is a black person, but he's not speaking for black people. He's speaking for the establishment. And it doesn't matter if he's a Republican or a neoliberal, as he calls them. Yeah, well, I think that's we should end the show on a great note right there, fam. You have a lot of great things to say. I want to thank those people, too, who are on our ROKFIN, Glory Jones, Tony watches closely, and others. You said you want to... Oh, yeah. Let's just run through it. Let's run through it. Okay, I guess we got it one more time. Let's go. Let's take about this, fam. Let's talk about your favorite paper, aside from the Washington Post. Weigel, she loves the New York Times here, right, fam? Yeah, I used to love the New York Times until they pushed the Iraq war. Yeah. And they really aided George Bush and his whole cabinet and all the neocons then to get us into the war. And a lot of Democrats, a lot of people like Hillary Rodham Clinton, Joe Biden, they all came aboard. They came to Iraq. But now, what are they doing now, fam? Where else are they pushing for regime change? So if you guys recall, there was regime change in Bolivia, and they forced the Bolivian president to pretty much flee to Mexico. Okay, and this is Evo Morales. Now, we know that in Latin America, we've had our share of socialist type of presidents and socialist type of countries pretty much be pushed out by the Western Empire. And so we remember that Morales was pushed out by this woman who was had a Nazi-like force behind her. They terrorized, brutalized, murdered some of the protesters, ran his whole cabinet out, completely replaced them. And then we found out that there was people like Marco Rubio and Donald Trump in talks and pushing this regime. Well, it turns out that the New York Times and, of course, mainstream media have also been lying about this. They lied about the accuracy and the validity of the elections, and it's just hilarious in retrospect because nobody has invaded this country and said, oh, we have to go spread democracy in America because their elections aren't valid, the people aren't being taken care of, and they're in poverty. fam. Exactly, the OAS.
Cory Booker says he stands behind the OAS. And this is why you got to be, it's a slippery slope when you get people who come in and say they're fighting for racial equality, but yet they'll stand behind the OAS, which is a NGO that's been just as nefarious as the NED. These are regime change light aficionados. And when you stand behind imperialism, is there anything more racist fam, than going with our imperialist ways when we just go around and killing people of color, indigenous people in their homeland? Is there anything more racist than that? No.
And I'm just going to read a couple parts from here. This is right under the picture of the woman. It says, given all irregularities observed, it is impossible to guarantee the integrity of the data and certify the accuracy of the results. This is what the OAS announced on November 10th, as the country was in turmoil over the election. The next day, Morales, under the threat of force to him and his family, boarded a plane to Mexico where he was granted asylum. The final OAS report in December claimed that the audit team has detected willful manipulation of the results based on incontrovertible evidence of an electoral process marred by grave irregularities. So like Pasta said, they were saying that this was irregular. And then that Sunday, the New York Times published an article strongly suggesting that it was the OAS audit, not the Bolivian election, that was marred by grave irregularities, making it impossible to guarantee the integrity of the data and certify the accuracy of the OAS claims. The paper of record summarized its reporting this way. A close look at the Bolivian election data suggested initial analysis by OAS that raised questions of vote rigging and helped force out a president was flawed. This is the OAS, the New York Times saying now, contradicting what they said during that time. They're trying to wash their hands of this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really hilarious to see.
And it's the mechanism, once again, of imperialism right here. Okay, listen, Donald Trump wanted this to happen. Okay, we might not have evidence that he was behind it, whatnot. We surely have evidence that Rubio was behind it, but it was all about what? The lithium fields, right?
Yep.
That the Chinese had made a contract bid on and
Right here.
received it, right?
Yes.
So are you going to read this here? I'm so sorry, please, because I didn't mean to step on your toes.
No, you're fine. Just they were just talking what Pasta was saying, the shifting power in lithium-rich Bolivia to the white Christian U.S. subservient right. This is what it was all about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was stealing the natural resources, and that's what happened. But we use these mechanisms like the OAS, the NED, all these mechanisms, all these NGOs are so awful. They're so sinister in what they do. They're really there to just push imperialism. Why doesn't the OAS come over here and detect our elections and say our elections are shit? Why are people buying this shit? I hate when I see neocons or Republicans say, well, look, their elections weren't fair.
Yeah.
We have to make sure they're a democratic system over there. What about our own fucking system?
Yeah,
oh, Mom, I'm sorry.
It's so hypocritical.
What
And
about our own fudging system?
Pompeo was behind also pushing
Of
the
course he
OAS, recommending this, to ensure a democratic process representative of the people's will. The credibility of the electoral system must be restored. This is how fucking, I'm sorry,
love this
hilarious.
rock, Johnny.
I just cannot. What about, look what just happened.
Johnny, I gotta get Johnny's opinion.
Throughout this whole primary.
Johnny, your opinions on Secretary Pompeo's statement about finding the OAS official report recommending new elections in Bolivia, Johnny?
Yeah, he's the worst. I mean, there's not much to say. He's the fucking worst. I mean, how's he in a position of power?
Yeah, well, that's because we don't care about our elections over here. People just take them as actual proof of the actual people's words. You want to dig into our elections? Oh, my Lord, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my Lord. We shouldn't be worried about elections anywhere. We should be worried about our elections at home.
And, of course, the countries like the New York Times, they did this, of course, during the war in Iraq. Papers like the New York Times did this, of course, during the war in Iraq. The Washington Post has done this. They do this all the time when it comes to foreign policy. And
we're doing it in Hong Kong right now with the NED.
Right.
The NED is up all the Decency Hong Kong Freedom Act, the bullshit. It has all NED advisories on their board.
Yeah. And I'm just going to read the last part of it. Towards the end. Yet those reasons for doubting the OAS accusations were barely ever even mentioned, let alone vested with credibility by the U.S. media or its leading foreign policy commentators. Instead, as the MIT scholars wrote in the Washington Post, quote, the media largely reported the allegations of fraud as fact. That's because whenever it comes to changing a foreign country's government that is disliked by the U.S. media reflexively sides with the U.S. State Department and seizes to report and instead engages in pro-government propaganda. In this case, Bolivia lost its most successful president in modern history and consequently now ruled by an unelected military junta, all cheered on by the U.S. and its media, relying on an OAS report, which even the New York Times is now forced to acknowledge is at best deeply flawed. Thus, did the U.S. government and its media yet again help destroy a thriving Latin American democracy. So obviously, that is how we do this.
During Evo Morales' tenure, reduced the poverty rate by 42%, reduced extreme poverty rate by 60%. Income per person has increased by more than double of Latin American average under Evo Morales. The literacy rate dropped from 13 to 2.4% under Evo. Unemployment went from 9.2 to 4.1, and it was still one of the fastest growing countries as pertaining to GDP. Evo was the first indigenous leader of Bolivia. So if you believe for 1 second that those election results that the OAS was saying was fugazi, then you got another thing coming. This guy was so liked by his people. He was loved by his people. And what did he do, fam, when they ousted him? He told his people to be peaceful.
He did.
To be peaceful. And you know what? He also talked about he has some politicians that have followed him in the pipeline coming, some young Evos. Hopefully they can come up and maybe rule. Maybe rule one day. If they don't mess with their elections. We know they will.
All right, fam. I think that's
all right, so that was a great show today. That was 2 great shows. Thank you very much for joining in. If you haven't joined our ROKFIN, ROKFIN, please do so. I want to say thanks to Glory Jones over there. Tony watches closely, Jackie Balgao, and anybody who joins the ROKFIN. If you can afford to endorse us for $9.99, you get our premium content and everybody else's premium content, including Jimmy Dore, who's now just joined the platform. But we got Graham Elwood, Nico House, Kim Iverson's there hanging out, the Radical Independent, the Vagabond, Action for Assange. There's guys like Jason Burmis. There's a bunch of MMA people. Who else? Jackson Facts. Of course, we know the facts. Somebody was kind of commenting the way Jackson kind of put me down in my non-vegetarian place the other day. He's great. I love Jackson Facts. So all these people are on ROKFIN, so please go over and join. Remember, we do the live stream back up on ROKFIN and Patreon. So if you're one of our Patreons, thank you from the bottom of our heart, and thank you to that girl and all the other people who left those super chat contributions. For Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue is still spinning on those 1s and 2s, ladies and gentlemen.
Combo out.